your pre?
My question is, I think Andre didn't ask it, but my question is, did you hire your first employee, and how was it? Like, what did you delegate to your first employee?
Great question. So when you're hiring early, it's always good to hire someone that you trust and you know, versus taking a bet, right? So I knew a guy named Dan Percy from trade shows. He was always a real good operator. I'm a sales-minded person, so I go get things to 80% and then let someone else do the other 20. Yeah. So Dan helped me with the other 20, right? I'd sell the 337, then he was like, "Okay, here we go." So Dan helped me document all the policies, procedures, and by the way, he had a day job. He had 2 or 3 different entrepreneurial roles he was in, and so he could afford to help me at a reduced rate, right? If I would have had to go hire someone like Dan, I'd have to spend $240,000 a year. Well, I ended up paying him probably $80,000 to $100,000 a year, and it was heavily tied to, it was half base and half tied to the success of the business. And then he earned a few points of ownership in the company. So, you know, finding someone you trust is important. And then finding someone who's not entirely dependent upon your revenues to keep the lights on is important, because they could suck the cash flow dry and we could have gone out of business. You know, like that month in March when we had a light month, I had gotten them up to $10,000 or $12,000 a month. And then we only sold 30. And I real quickly had to pivot back and say, okay, hey, we need to go back to the base. I can't afford to pay you all the upside variable right now. So tie as much as you can of your company costs to a variable cost and not a fixed cost.
Okay, so is it how you motivate your salespeople and everyone on the company, or just or just him?
Everybody. I mean, even the salespeople are paid on a commission basis. So they see our technology that's AI for sales. They love it and they want to be a part of it. So they come on board and I say, look, after you sell your first 2 deals, then we'll get you, first I'll give you all the technology that you need, emails, the dialing technology. We'll give you the whole stack, no cost. Once you sell your first 2 deals, then we'll get you the access to CRM. And so they really fund their way into the company. And oh yeah, by the way, I'll pay you 40% of the deal for the first 2. Wow. And then I move it down to 20%. So I know that there's a transition period for sellers. So I'm going to give you basically all of my margin for the first 2 deals while you get up to speed, and then we'll move you to a 20% margin. But yeah, most companies in the most employees in the company are tied to a very aggressive variable program.
Interesting. Okay. But so we spoke about that, right? How many people are on the team right now?
So there's basically 2 full-time employees. If you were to ask my customers, they'd say, oh yeah, ScaleX, we've heard of them.
A lot of people, yeah.
And they think you must have 30 people and you're in downtown Denver in a skyscraper. No. We have 2 full-time employees. Now I have 4 contractors that do dials on behalf of customers. And they're the ones that are doing 800 to 1,000 dials a day using the dialing software. And then I have partners, right? I've got the data partner, I've got email, social, and each of these partners have their own teams of people. So I'm a marketing engine and a branding engine. And then a lot of I have a level 1 or level 2 support with Shannon, my head of operations.
Okay.
And then I have a couple customer success contractors, right? They're not FTEs, they're contractors paid on when the customer's successful. And then the rest of the team is working on behalf of my vendors. And then they're able to join customer calls as well, which is kind of nice.
But this is mind blown, because you then have a pretty high revenue per employee, correct?
Yeah, right. If you say we do 1.8 this year with 2 FTEs, that's 900,000 per employee.
Yeah, that's mind blown.
Yeah, and I think that's where AI and machine learning and NLP, I think that's where things head, is that we all have the ability to wear an Iron Man suit, no matter what it is we're doing, right? They've done it in manufacturing, and now it's bleeding over into sales. I'll give you an example. There's a technology called Balto software that we're just in the process of piloting. And it takes my conversation in real time, converts it to text, and then makes sure as a salesperson that I've asked all the right questions. And then if you, the customer, comes back and says, well, this sounds an awfully lot like Gong. Well, then it would hear that, and the machine learning would pop up on the right side of the screen and say, ask these 3 questions, right? If you're competing against Gong. And so then if I ask the question, even if it's within 70% of what's written on the screen, the computer's smart enough to check the box, say, okay, good job, Chad, you asked that question. Now ask the next one. And then at the end, I've done my 3, a little champagne cork pops, and it's like, high five, you've done your job. So augmentation is going to give salespeople a real ability to be much more successful, to where I honestly think coming out of COVID, people might be able to move to 4-day work weeks here pretty quickly if they want to. It's been the promise for decades, but if we want to make it happen, now would be the time.
Chad, I'm really wondering, what are your core acquisition channels? What do you use for lead generation? Where all these leads are coming from?
Yeah, it's interesting. Traditionally, trade shows has been kind of a big one. So I speak at 8, 10, 12 conferences a year. And that's why I'm in the mountains right now, because I'm used to getting out of my house for a week at a time and being locked in for a month and a half or 2. I was like, I need to get out of the house. So conferences generate probably 25 to 30% of the revenue. And then, we use our own platform to do outreach. So I've got 25 virtual assistants that are executing emails right now, trying to book meetings on my calendar that cost, pennies on the dollar compared to a person. And they're all highly configured. Hey, you're the CFO of a company. What if you could cut your costs of sales by 70%? You're the CMO. Your trade shows just got cut over the last month. How are you going to fill the gap on the 10%? So we're constantly spinning the plates of these persona-based outreaches through email, social, digital paid ads, and dials. And by running all 4 of the multi-channels, that's how we drive the lion's share of the deals for the company.
Got it. And when you just started, so besides the word of mouth, besides the referrals, what was the initial core channel you generated leads? So was it you just immediately started to talk at conferences, or you started cold outreach? And if you started cold outreach, my question is, how did you choose the right or the appropriate target market?
Great question. Because I had sold into funded startups, I knew their business pain. So we already, the company before RingCentral, I was at Connect and Sell, and we sold to seed round, Series A, B, and C, and we knew the pain of that market. So it's very helpful not just making a thesis about a market, but actually knowing how they buy and having had experience in that. So that's how we picked the market, because we knew it already existed. In terms of the initial list, this is making me go back. My original business partner was the best BDR that I ever worked with. So he can call anyone and basically convince you to take a meeting. So I exported my list of probably 10,000 people in LinkedIn at the time. And then we appended it with data, and we said, okay, who are the ones that are seed, Series A, Series B, Series C? And we built a list of about 500 top executives out of the 10,000. So these are first connections to me. So Evan would use the dialer and he'd call 125 people an hour out of my 500. And then it would beep in his ear and he'd say, "Hey, Frank Swain, this is Evan. I've partnered with Chad Burmeister. You're connected with him on First Connection on LinkedIn. Do you have a sec?" Okay. And he goes, "What do you got?" Well, Evan said, "Hey, my company and Chad's company that we're co-founding together, we do outbound for companies like yours. And instead of booking 5 or 10 meetings in a month, we could book you 50 or 100 meetings in a month. Would you be interested?" Frank says, "Sure." That became the very first customer, right? He called my list of the 500 who have a propensity to buy. They know me. But it was a third party making the calls. And by it not being me and having someone else call and say, "I'm calling on behalf of my boss, Chad, or my business partner," that combo really helped us get in the door. You know, we created a multi-million-dollar pipeline in a very short period of time that way.
Cool.